Good morning, Healing Through Movement Facebook page. It's me, Shyloe Fayad, transformational life coach, founder of Radical Wondering and Happiness Habits, and I'm here today to talk to you about the 3 best ways to combat anxiety. So welcome, and if you enjoy what you see, if you're excited about this topic, please share this link with with your friends and family on your own personal Facebook page. I'm trying to see here if there's a way for me to share this too on my page so that other people can enjoy it. But I'm not really sure if that's going to work this morning. Just bear with me for a minute here. There is some way for me to do this. I see there's 7 people watching. Good morning and hello. Maybe I'll just post it later. Thanks for your patience. I'm going to leave that and I'm going to leave this. Okay, great. So I'm super excited to be with you this morning. And yes, if you hear something you like, just give me some thumbs up and some hearts because I love hearts. It's one of my favorite things. Yes, again, just so I can introduce myself as I see there's more people coming on. My name's Shyloe Fayad. I'm a transformational life coach. And I've been coming at you actually 3 weeks consecutively now. Originally, I was talking about, depression and anxiety, and now we're focusing primarily on anxiety today. We have about 15 minutes to have a chat, and, I could talk about these topics for days and days on end because I'm so passionate about them. So I'll tell you a little bit at the end of this chat, ways that you can get more information. So great. Let's begin. So you have come to the right place if you yourself are experiencing any anxiety in your life. We live in a society right now where things are moving at probably the fastest pace they've ever moved in the entire history of our existence as human beings. And as a result, it seems that more and more people are experiencing an increasing amount of stress and therefore also an increasing amount of anxiety. And so you're in the right place if you experience anxiety, if you know anybody who's experiencing anxiety, or if you just like to know some ways to sort of reduce your own feelings of internal stress throughout the day. I will be giving you some of those in a moment. I feel like this topic is extremely important because of what I just talked about, what I just mentioned there about society in general and things moving at such a fast pace. What I have noticed myself is that most people in most jobs right now on the planet, the way their job is actually working for them is it's almost geared towards burnout. We are living in a society where, as a people, a lot of the ways in which we are moving in this world is sending us into burnout or creating, there's a massive amount of people on sick leave, seeing counselors, doing all sorts of things at this time in our existence to improve their health, not only physically, but in a grand scale, mentally and emotionally. So thank you for joining us today. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a history on what my relationship is with anxiety and where it comes from. And then I'm going to go into the 3 best ways I feel that you can combat anxiety. And these ways are scientifically proven. All the things I share with you do have basis in science and my own personal experience. So I feel really comfortable sharing them. Myself, I've shared on previous videos that I suffered from depression for about 20 years of my life, mostly due to a traumatic environment that I was raised in. And coupled oftentimes with depression is anxiety. And so I also have quite a bit of experience with that. And what I have discovered around anxiety in particular is there's quite a difference between anxiety and fear. So a lot of people on the planet experience all different sorts of fears. You can be afraid at a movie, for example, or be afraid, of heights. But anxiety takes on a different quality than fear. So anxiety has quite a larger emotional expression, quite a larger physiological expression. And sort of the root behind anxiety oftentimes is a fear coupled with a desire to control the circumstances. Okay, so it's just not fear on its own, but it's fear coupled with a desire to control the circumstances. And for those of you that are listening, if you have anxiety in your lives and you have a particular question for me or a comment to make about what I'm sharing or a question in regards to what I'm sharing, how you'd like to understand a bit more, please drop it down in the comments. It's really important for us to have, a bit of a connection here so that I can bring you the information you need moving forward. Oh, look, a like. Somebody likes that. That's great. So yes, so this fear coupled with a desire to control the fear, that is one of the expressions of anxiety, for example. And anxiety really is a physiological response. So not only are you afraid, but you start sweating. You might experience it like your heart starting to race. Your palms will be sweaty. You're very distracted. You have a hard time concentrating. Now, anxiety can happen in any kind of situation. And for myself, my anxiety often had a bit of an interesting source. And this is very common throughout my clients that I talk to that have anxiety, or individuals I come across, or some of the readings I've done as well, is that anxiety oftentimes, be it that if, I'm talking about it's like a fear in which you want to control your surroundings. But what's lying underneath this is an emotional source usually. Anxiety oftentimes is the result of pushing down emotions. It's like it creates a disconnect within your body, and you have like this physiological response of anxiety. Okay, so I'm not sure if that's making sense for people, but anxiety oftentimes correlates to a suppression of emotion. So let's see if I can come up with an example. Let's say you're extremely busy throughout the day. You have a lot of things going on, a lot of deadlines, a lot of specific actions or specific projects that you need to finish in order to get to an end result. So lots of times people experience anxiety throughout that process. So it's not a relaxed, ease-filled process for them to, throughout their work week or throughout their work month, as they're building up to this huge project that needs to be accomplished, that they're feeling relaxed. More often than not, they have this internal sense of anxiety where they're having a hard time sleeping. They're up in the middle of the night talking about this or thinking about this, this specific project that they have to finish. So this really consumes them. Now, when you're talking about anxiety as being the result of suppressed emotion, in that particular instance, what would be helpful is to figure out what's going on underneath there. Is the person on a subconscious level sort of consumed with the expectations around the project? Do they have a specific outcome that they're wanting? Are they afraid of a particular reaction? So what are the feelings going on underneath that anxiety? So those are really, really important to take into consideration if you are experiencing anxiety on a regular basis. In my own personal life, that is some of the work that I have done. When I feel extremely anxious, I stop. I take a break and I try to see what is going on underneath. Oftentimes my anxiety will be coupled with a feeling of overwhelm, complete and utter overwhelm. And when I'm in that overwhelm, I just want to get done what I need to get done so I can get through the overwhelm, get done with it, and relax. So that's the way in the past I've dealt with my anxiety. And it's a way sometimes I still deal with my anxiety until I sort of have a wake up, right? And so what that means is when you're in the middle of this anxious overwhelm, if you're able to practice some of the techniques I talked about earlier of noticing, so all of a sudden you recognize what's happening for you, the best thing you can do is just take a moment. Just take a moment. And what I do is I'll take a moment and I'll sort of wonder within myself, what is going on here? What is really happening? In the past, I've pushed through. I would just continue moving as fast as I could, getting the things I needed to get done so that, so I could just get to the end of whatever I needed to get done, pushing through the whole time. But what I found happened then is everything was that much more challenging to do because I was so consumed with this overwhelming anxiety. So what I learned to do is to stop. And oftentimes all I need is 15 minutes, 5 to 15 minutes of being still and breathing. And then it'll pass. It seems very simple. It sounds very simple, but it's not easy. When you're caught in anxiety, it is very difficult to stop and be still and breathe. Here's a perfect scenario. And this is one of the inexplicable anxieties that might come up for people. Sometimes it just shows up out of nowhere, just like that. It shows up just like that. I've had times where I wake up in the morning and within 30 seconds, I'm anxious. I realize I'm totally anxious. Or a couple weeks ago, I was getting a massage and some craniosacral therapy done. And this massage was going great. It felt really good. Then I started to get the craniosacral therapy done. And all of a sudden, anxious. I felt anxious. I started thinking all these anxious thoughts. I was thinking about disturbing situations or whatever, just something anxious. And when I became aware of it immediately, I had to sort of recognize what was happening and then begin to breathe from my belly. The thing about anxiety is when the anxiety is full blown, when you're actually stuck within the anxiety, it is very, very hard to come out of it. One of the ways that you can come out of anxiety, and now this is tip number one, like more consciously tip number one is to really get in touch with your body. So actually, like instead of, when a person's extremely anxious, it's sort of like you're going out of your body, get in touch with your body. And the best thing that you can do is to focus on breathing in your belly. It might not give you immediate relief, but it is one of the most important techniques that you can adopt when you're combating anxiety, is learning to breathe, especially breathing into your belly. When you're breathing from up here, when you're breathing like a shallow breath, and which is what a lot of us do every single day, all day, is breathing up here. It's like you're setting your body up for this predisposition or this idea that you're in survival, that you're in fight or flight. So when you're breathing up here, you're actually giving a message to your nervous system that you're on high alert, like something's going to happen, like you don't know what's coming. When you're able to move down and breathe into your belly, your nervous system can slow down. Does that make sense? I wish I was in front of an audience like I was this weekend and I could see you nodding. Yes, that makes sense. Or I could see people's quizzical looks that were like, I don't really know what she's talking about because now I'm feeling anxious already. I don't know how to practice belly breathing. I don't see anybody in front of me. So it's always great when you type in a yes, or you type in a question, or you say, yes, that's a technique I use, or no, that never's worked for me. I don't know what you're talking about. I would love to hear from you. So tip number one, belly breathing, where your belly is moving in and out. Your belly breathing will begin to give a signal to your body, a signal physiologically that your body can relax. Great. As a yoga therapist, oh, Janice is commenting. As a yoga therapist, I'm always encouraging belly breath. It also works for me when I have anxious feelings. It does take practice. Yes, thank you, Janice. That's helpful. And Michael says yes as well. Thank you. I love hearing your feedback. Great. So belly breathing, we're in agreement with the belly breathing. Number two. Now this is something I thought kind of goes along a little bit with what I was saying in the beginning about stopping. And as anxious people, oftentimes we have a tendency, yes, thanks, Steve. We have a tendency to take on actions that create anxiety, all right? We actually have a tendency as anxious people to make choices around our actions that increase our level of anxiety. Now I'm going to give you some examples. Rushing. Rushing is an activity that was actually sort of a habit of mine that encourages my body to feel anxious. It's a habit I had for, I don't know, decades, that I needed to become aware of by noticing I was doing it, and then make different choices. Rushing is one. The other one is multitasking. I highly discourage anxious people from multitasking. If you read any of the studies on multitasking, any of the journals, any scientific discoveries around multitasking, it is not a good idea, people. Multitasking is not a good idea, especially not if you're anxious. The brain is not designed to jump from place to place to place to place like that. It's not. As much as they say, oh, women are so good at multitasking, men should be better at multitasking. I'm telling you right now, multitasking is not a thing. It is not a thing, especially not for anxious people. Your brain is designed to focus on one thing and to complete that before going on to another. When you're constantly interrupting the sequence of your brain, when it's focused on something, it creates disharmony in the body, okay? It creates so that you cannot finish anything really properly. And it also lends itself to further anxiety. Do you understand what I'm saying? Rushing is a big no-no. Multitasking is a big no-no. Anything that you're doing Thank you, Jennifer. Yes with an exclamation mark. Jennifer has sent a yes with an exclamation mark. I love this, Jennifer. Multitasking is like anything that you're going to be doing that's sort of creating further feelings of anxiety in your body is not helpful. Okay, so tip number 1 was belly breathing. Okay, tip number 2 is to stop the habits that are furthering, that are promoting, that are propagating your anxiety. And these habits, I'm gonna tell you what they are right here. You can write them down. Rushing, so true, sets me up every time. Right, Bonnie? Rushing is a pain in the arse, right? And unless we like become aware of what we're doing in the moment, it just sort of has a trickle down effect into our entire day. It ripples out into everything. Thanks, Deborah. Haha, what if you have a toddler? Good call on that one, Deborah. Good call on that one. Yes, I had 4 children at home myself. So we had to start our day very early if we wanted to get out of the door and make it somewhere on time. Like I think it took, I don't know, at least an hour from the time we decided we were leaving the house to the time we actually got out the door to whatever location we're going to. So plan for it. Plan for it, Deborah. That's all I can say is just get up really early. Steve says, a lot of women wear multitasking as a badge of honor. Well, Steve, I'm here to tell you, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say swear words on the Healing Through Movement website, so I'll just beat myself out. I'm going to tell you, Steve, that's bull. Okay, Steve? That's BS. I'll tell you right now. This whole badge of honor multitasking thing, it's not a thing. It just makes women crazy. Maybe don't quote me on that. There might be some women out there that might take offense at Shyloe Fayad, transformational coach, saying multitasking makes women crazy. But maybe I will be not gender specific because that would be more respectful. In this space, I will say multitasking makes humans crazy. Okay, Steve? So kudos on that one, that the men can't multitask very well. They stay grounded. Anyway, okay, I'm getting off on a rant here. Not sure if we need a rant today. I'm off on a rant. So back to this idea of stopping the activities that are propagating, that are promoting your anxiety. So the other one is, I said, no rushing, no multitasking. And the last one is stay off your phones. Crickets. You hear that? There's a bit of a pause there because I know everybody on the other side's like, what? Stay off my phone? Stay off your phones as much as you can. And I mean it. And the group of anxiety has never experienced. Okay, thank you so much. I need to be mentored today. Lots. Oh, great. Naima, thank you for sharing. Yes, the grip of anxiety is awful. I would actually have to say that in my personal experience, anxiety is worse than depression. For me personally, with depression at least, you know, I can get some sort of relief from going to bed, going to sleep, or doing something. But anxiety to me is so much more challenging than depression. But that's a whole other topic. Yes, Steve, I'm glad you agree with me. Yeah, that makes people crazy. It's true. Okay, stay off your phones. I'm going to get back to that because that's not a popular one. I'm going to tell you that is not a popular one for people. When I tell them stay off your phones to help reduce your anxiety. But your phones are the perfect setup for insanity building multitasking. Are they not? Oh, I got a text. Oh, I'm sending an email. Oh, I'm checking Facebook. No, I say no to that. All right? No rushing, no multitasking, and stay off those phones. Really, people? Do we need to be checking Facebook in the lineup at the grocery store? Just putting it out there. So let's just do a review of the tips because now I'm on a bit of a rant. I'm on a little bit of a roll here, and we got to wrap up our time. Number 1, belly breathing. That's tip number 1 to combat anxiety. Belly breathing. Tip number 2, stay away from activities that are increasing your anxiety. No rushing, no multitasking. Stay off the phones. Stop looking at Facebook and checking your emails in the line at the grocery store. Belly breathe instead. Now, let's see. True. Thanks, Deborah. Yes, thank you. I love it when people agree with me. You know, I love it. We all love that, I think. The last one. Now, this one is really fascinating and something that I noticed a little while back. And we don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to try to share as much with you as I can because this is an extremely interesting tool to combat anxiety. Now, there's been many times where I've done speaking engagements where I'm starting to feel anxious, right? I'm sweating. In fact, today I'm sweating a little bit. I always sweat a little bit before these lives, even though, you know, I'm in the comfort of my own home and I don't see anybody. I still get a little sweaty, all right? So maybe that's TMI, but it's out there now. So yes, right. So what I recognized is physiologically, anxiety is almost identical to excitement. Physiologically, anxiety is almost identical to excitement. Your body doesn't really know the difference. It's what you label it as. It's what you label it as. So for example, let's say I'm going on the stage and my heart might be pounding. That doesn't really happen so much anymore, but I'm sweating and I'm just feeling anxious. Okay, let's just say I'm feeling anxious. How is that feeling? I'm just going to ask you this. How is that feeling any different than, for example, let's say I'm in a lineup at Disneyland and I'm anticipating going down the Tower of Terror, which I did do, which was scary, down the Tower of Terror. How is that feeling, which would be excitement and maybe a little bit of anxiety, but you're not debilitated by it, right? You're not debilitated by it. The difference between that and anxiety before going out in front of people. Well, scientific studies have showed that if you can tell yourself, I'm excited, I'm feeling excited about going on the stage, I feel excited, I'm feeling excited, that you can begin to trick your brain so that that anxiety does not control you. You can hear all about it in, okay, Caitlin's here, right. You can read all about that, actually, or hear all about it, maybe read all about it, in the 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. She talks about it. She's been, good morning, Caitlin. She's been a victim of anxiety all her life. And that's one of the techniques Mel Robbins used. She tells herself, I'm excited. I'm excited to go out on stage and talk to people. Because she was feeling anxiety. She was one of the most, in 2016, Mel Robbins was one of the most booked speakers in all of North America. I think she did 103 speaking engagements in 1 year, all right? And she talks about this exact same thing, that feeling anxious, really, really anxious, is no different than feeling really, really excited. And she began to tell herself, I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling excited. That's what this is. I'm feeling excited. So it's almost like she reprogrammed herself. And over time, that excitement/anxiety diminished. It just began to diminish because of the way she was framing it for herself. Is this making any sense to people? Has anybody noticed that anxiety and excitement are similar? Have any of you noticed that? For any of you who would like to have more information about that in particular, I can look up some articles if you'd like. So just leave a note in the comments and I can do that for you. For those of you who need a little recap, here it is. So today was on 3 of the best ways to combat. Yes, for sure. Caitlin says yes, for sure. Steve says no. Now I can't remember what I was asking that Steve said no about. Steve, can you tell me what the no is about? The no means it doesn't make sense. Is that what you're saying? I've never thought of it like that. Thanks. Really helpful. Great, Deborah. I'm all about being helpful. I'm hoping this is always helpful. And Mohammed says, hell yeah. Hell yeah, back at you, Mohammed. So before I give you the summary of those 3 tips again, before we get off here, I wanted to tell you next week I'd like to offer an open coaching time slot. So at 9:30 PST time, so Pacific Standard Time, 9:30, same time as usual is what I'm saying. I'd like to offer 15-20 minutes of an open coaching session. So for those of you who have questions about depression, anxiety, relationships, your own personal health and wellness journey, even if you have a chronic illness, any of you who have anything going on, I want you to drop on by next Thursday morning at 9:30. And I'm going to have an open coaching session where I'm going to help you with whatever's happening in the moment. All right, invite your friends. Okay, time to change perspective. Great, awesome, Jennifer. I'm glad that's helpful. So 3 tips again. I'm going to review this. You've been listening to Shyloe Fayad, transformational coach. That's me. That's me. With the 3 best ways to combat anxiety. 1 being belly breathing, getting yourself into your body, and really focusing on the belly breathing so your whole nervous system can just like slow right down. Number 2 is to stop the activities that are creating or perpetuating your anxiety. And the examples I give of that is no rushing, no multitasking, and staying off your phones. I'm going to say that one again, staying off your phones. I'm going to say that a 3rd time, actually, staying off the phones. And the 3rd tip was to reframe your anxiety as excitement. Reframe that anxiety as excitement. And we might be able to talk a little bit more about that next week. And for those of you who have some questions about that particular tip, because we've run out of time today, just add some questions in the comments below, and I will be into Healing Through Movement throughout the week to respond to all of your questions. It's really important for me to make sure that you get everything you like out of these videos, out of these live videos. So if you have loved this video, if you felt it's helpful, please share it with your family and friends. Post it to your own Facebook page. Recommend people join Healing Through Movement. And if you want some more expert articles and information, head on to Exercises for Injuries as well. And as for me, you can always find me on Facebook at Shyloe Fayad, or you can also check out Happiness Habits by Shyloe. And for those of you, remember I was going to say something, oh, look at all the hearts and a flower. Who gets the flowers? Where do these flowers come from? Oh, in an angry face. Oh, in a sad face. I wonder who the angry and sad faces are. For those of you who want to spend a bit more time with me, I have got time for 3 complimentary calls this week. So if you would like to take advantage of that, actually, I think today's Thursday, so they happen, I think there's some calls available. Actually, I think they're on Monday. Let's be honest, Monday. So if you're curious about spending some time with me, asking me some questions about my work and also getting some feedback about your own personal journey, I'm going to pop a link down in the comments and you can book yourself a time. It'd be great to connect further. Have a great Thursday. And remember, put down those phones. Bye for now.